What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having an amazing day. Now, today's Entitled Parents video starts off with a story where a vegan gets very annoyed at an innocent, regular kid for eating chicken. Well, I say gets annoyed. Actually, she just starts shouting at him in a public place for doing something that's completely legal. Very unnecessary. Let's get into the story. Vegan mum yells at me for eating chicken. Now, a couple of things before I start this story. This actually happened to my friend, but I'm going to use I and me because that's easier. And also, I've got nothing against anyone being vegan or vegetarian. I just like eating meat. So, I'm in a restaurant and I'm alone. I order, no problem, and sit down with some chicken wings. I'm sat on my phone while shoving as many down my throat as I can, until in my peripheral vision, I see a lady staring at me and talking to someone else while staring directly at me. At that moment, I decided not to make eye contact. This is the entitled vegan mum. I'm almost finishing my meal, and then I hear someone say, "Did you know a chicken died for your meal?" I instantly knew she was talking to me, and here is the way the conversation went down. "I'm sorry? Your chicken wings. An animal died for your meal. You should be ashamed of yourself." "Yeah, look, I know that an animal died, but I still want to eat it, and I'm sorry, but can you please leave me alone?" This society keeps getting worse and worse. There's people like you that enjoy eating the flesh of innocent lives, but you can still change to a vegan lifestyle. What? I said you can switch to veganism. This got the people surrounding us attention. "Please, go away," I said. "Excuse me?" I said, "Please go away. I don't want to talk to you, and I'm not going to veganism just because some lady who I don't know told me to." This generation is terrible. How disrespectful can you be to a person that's just explaining how your actions affect others? At this point, a worker started to head over. "I don't care, just go away." Then the worker got involved. "Excuse me, can you two try and keep the volume down, or I'm going to have to ask you to leave." He's harassing me and screaming at me while I'm just letting him know the consequences of eating meat. I then explained to the worker exactly what happened. "Oh, okay, I understand. Look, Mum, I'm gonna need to ask you to return to your seats." "Are you really gonna believe him?" "Well, yes." "Well, I'm gonna leave if you're gonna be like that." "Alright then, bye." I feel bad about what my friend had to go through. As I've said before many times on my channel, and I'm sure you guys agree with my opinion on this one, if someone has a very strong belief about something, then that is absolutely fine, no matter what it is. Whatever someone believes in, I'm never going to judge that really, because you can just believe in whatever you want to. You know, we live in a free world, and if someone wants to be vegan or, you know, believe in a certain religion or live their life in a certain way, then that is their choice, completely fine. I mean, with veganism in particular, it's a pretty incredible thing, you know? Obviously, vegans limit themselves to what they can eat, and, you know, as part of that, yeah, they're not eating other animals. It's a pretty great thing to do. I completely rate it. And to be honest, I have thought about it a couple of times, going vegan myself. Like OP, I do love meat a lot, and it is like a big part of my diet, so I'm not sure if I want to do it, but for the sake of the world, I rate people that do it very highly. However, and you guys probably knew I was going to say this, the problem for me comes when people start forcing their beliefs onto other people. That's too far. In this situation, someone's eating chicken. It's perfectly legal. And you may not like it because you're a vegan, but you can't then go and just like start abusing them for it. Sure, maybe you can, you know, go up to them and ask if they'd be interested in hearing about veganism and the great benefits of it, but you can't just go up to this random kid and start shouting at him in a restaurant. That's way too far, and to be honest, that just gives a bad name to vegans. Like, you know, that vegan teacher that I've used in the thumbnail of today's video, she hasn't really done that much for the vegan community, has she? She's kind of like made a ridicule of the whole thing. Not that vegans would say that she is a part of the community, but, you know, she hasn't really helped, has she? To sum up, vegans are awesome, and people that believe in things are awesome, but then don't just force your beliefs onto random people unnecessarily. That's too far. Right then, moving on to our second story of today's episode. Entitled mum gets me beaten up because I refuse to steal for her son, her entitled kid. I am a 44-year-old female. A few weeks ago, I visited my 24-year-old nephew, and he said something that reminded me of this story that happened back when I was 13. I've never forgotten it, and it actually tormented me for years, but until my nephew made the comments, I'll add what he said at the end of the story, I hadn't realized just how much it shaped who I am. I'm the youngest of 5 kids. I have 3 sisters and a brother. Our mum raised us all alone. My next door neighbor, who I'll call the entitled mum, also had 5 kids, 4 girls and a boy. The The boy, a 9-year-old male, is the entitled kid of this story. Now, this next part is sadly relevant. All of us are white, except for that entitled kid, whose father was from India. We're all in the UK. Now, some important info. My mum and the entitled mum were friends as well as neighbours. They'd go in each other's homes daily for a cup of tea and a chat. I never liked that entitled mum. She always knocked me down when my mum wasn't around, and when I told my mum about this, she always told me I'd misunderstood and that the entitled mum would never mean anything she said in a bad way. She'd tell me that I was too sensitive, which I admit I am, and I still am to this day. 2 of my sisters, who were 15 and 16 years old at the time, were friends with 2 of the entitled mum's daughters, and were really nice, nothing like their brother. So then, moving on to the story. Mum never liked us staying indoors, so I was sent to play outside on my own. The entitled kid saw me and called me over. We were by his front gate at the time, which is important, with full view of their front door. The entitled kid said to me, "OP, I want some Smarties. Can you get me some?" For Americans, they're very similar to M&Ms. "Give me the money for them, and I'll pop over to the shops for you." I had nothing else to do, so I didn't mind. Well, I don't have any money." "Yeah, I don't either. Sorry." "Well, go and steal some Smarties for me." "Nah, I'm not gonna do that." "Go and steal me some, or I'll tell my mum you were mean to me." "No way." Then I try and change the subject. I commented that I liked his new jacket that he was wearing. The kid looked at his jacket, and his face changed. He started to look all smug. He proceeded to spit a big gulp of saliva onto his sleeve. Then this was followed by an almighty scream. His entitled mum comes running out, looking all worried at her kid. "Son, what's wrong? Look." He held up his arm with fake tears streaming down his face. "OP spat on my jacket and called me a racial slur." I was shocked. "What? No, I didn't. Your kid wanted me to steal Smarties, but I refused. Then he spat on his own jacket and is trying to blame me for it." But the entitled mum didn't say a word to me. The look of anger was clear on her face, and she glared at me, screaming at the top of her lungs for my mum. My mum comes running out and sees the angry entitled mum, her crying entitled kid, and me just stood there. I admit I was actually too much in shock to even react. What the entitled mum said next, I will never ever forget. She said to my mum, "Your daughter just spat on my kid's jacket and called him a racial slur. Is that how you're raising your kids?" My mum said to me, "Is that true?" "No, he wanted me to steal sweets for him. I refused, and now he's trying to get me in trouble." But the entitled mum continued on. "No, I saw and heard her. I was stood by the front door when she spat on his jacket and called him that racial slur." She then turned to me. "I saw and heard you." That was all my mum needed to hear. Another adult had seen it, so I didn't stand a chance. My mum grabbed me by my hair and dragged me into the house. Her anger now matched the entitled mum's. And guys, remember, when this story happened, OP, the person writing, was only 13 years old. Obviously, her mum's gonna believe her other adult friend rather than her 13-year-old kid. Once inside, my mum pushed me against the wall and started slamming my head into it while screaming that she never raised me to be a racist. This was followed by slaps. I managed to pull away and tried to run up to my room, but she followed me. Once in my room, I was pushed on my bed and slapped some more. Mum thought she had a racist daughter and she was livid. I cried myself to sleep that night. For 1 month, I wasn't allowed to leave my small box bedroom for anything other than school. I had no radio or TV in my room. We couldn't afford it. My meals were brought to me. I'd be screamed at if I left for the bathroom, so I resorted to peeing in a plastic box and tipping it down the toilet after my mum had gone to bed. My sisters, knowing what the entitled kid was like, tried to make our mum see sense, but as far as she was concerned, another adult had seen me, so it must be true. The entitled kid was scared of my 16-year-old sister, so she took advantage of this and proceeded to threaten the entitled kid that if he ever did anything like that again, that she would make him regret it. Her threats worked and the kid left me alone. My sisters would also bring me books to read and keep me company when they could. I never had kids of my own, but I looked after my sister's kids a lot. The comment my nephew said was, "One of the things I remember growing up about you is that if someone accused me of doing something, you didn't just take their word for it. You asked me if it was true and told me that you wouldn't be angry, that you just wanted to know the truth." He then said, "I was never scared of telling you the truth because you always had my back. If I'd done it, you'd calmly explain why I was wrong, and that would be the end of it." You know what, guys? It really helped knowing that something good came out of what happened. Now that is a tough one right there. Put yourself in OP's mum's shoes. She's just heard one of her best friends, who is of course an adult, tell her that she has heard her 13-year-old child being racist to her kid. Now, if I put myself in that position, as much as of course I would always back my kid in that situation, it would be super hard not to side with your friend, who is of course an adult. I believe what they were saying. Honestly, as much as it would hurt me, I would believe what they were saying. And as much as I wouldn't want to even think that my kid could say something like that, it would be really hard for me to not in the back of my mind just accept that, you know what, unfortunately, this might have actually happened. Now, for OP, obviously, this is a very horrible experience to have gone through. Being accused of being racist when that's just never ever in your character, I can only imagine how horrible that feels. So I'm really sorry that you had to go through this. And you know what? That is the trouble of being a 13-year-old. When other adults are accusing you of stuff you haven't done, you really can't do too much about it. In this situation, you kind of just had to accept it. As much as your sisters backed you, nothing really more you could have done there. However, as OP has said at the end of the story, the fact that there has been a positive outcome to this entire event is an amazing thing. And it just shows that as generations pass and, you know, kids become adults and have kids of their own or nephews of their own, they can, you know, teach them about their life's experience and hopefully remember this key event which happened and use it to, you know, not just jump to conclusions with their future kids or their future sisters' kids like has happened in this story. So great to see that, you know, the whole human world of learning that kids don't always lie and that, you know, not every adult is always telling the truth. It's a tough one though. Like, I don't really blame OP's mum. I mean, look, in hindsight, of course, but, you know, at the time, she's just heard her best mate say that her kid's being racist. That's a tough one. And guys, you also got to remember that, you know, back in the day, hitting your kid and stuff was, although it's an absolutely horrible thing and something that I'd never do, and fortunately my parents never hit me or my sister, it was something that was more prevalent. So it's not that out of the ordinary as much as it is disgusting. Wow. What a story. What a way to end the vid. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this one. Leave your comments down below because, look, that's my opinion on this story. But honestly, I want to hear what you're thinking because my opinion could waver. That's a 50-50. Who's in the right, who's in the wrong? Put yourself in OP's perspective, first of all, but then in her mum's perspective and try and understand her reaction. It's not a good reaction, but I can kind of understand why she went to that extreme and obviously sided with the entitled mum, who she just saw as one of her best mates. Tough one. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. Watch all my other videos right here, subscribe here, and I'll see you all tomorrow with a brand new story.